The left-wing media in this country is an absolute joke. They're far better than right-wing media, but they're still an absolute joke. They're all walking around talking about the Democratic Party needs to dump Joe Biden, and that's absolutely ridiculous. Now, before you hear what I have to say, know who you're listening to right now. I'm an independent. I've never been a registered Republican or Democrat, and I don't think I'll live long enough to ever be registered to either of these parties because they're both complete jokes, especially the Republican Party. Now, that is unlike Anna Kasparian. Anna Kasparian, I guess co-host, co-founder, whatever, of TYT, the greatest progressive news network, who just admitted in a video that she, after all that we've seen, is a registered Democrat, and she's now talking about registering as an independent. Now, she does politics for a living, so she would know a lot more about how awful the Democrats are than I would. In fact, she does a lot of videos talking about it all day. So why is she a registered Democrat? It would never even cross my mind to register as a Democrat, right? And I'm not the one who does politics for a living like she does. She's been in this game way longer. When she started in this game, I didn't even know what a liberal was. I didn't know what a conservative was. I only started paying attention, I think, 2015 or so, right? So I was never an Obama guy. I was never in the Bernie camp, never a registered Democrat, and I can't stand Joe Biden, right? However, I believe in facts over feelings, right? I at first heard them keep talking about replacing Joe Biden, and it sounded right. It made sense to me, and I was like, yeah, let's get rid of him. And they kept saying any generic Democrat, but then they never gave any facts or data to back it up. Every single person who is out there in left-wing media talking about the DNC needs to dump Joe Biden, I want you to respond and ask them, who should they replace Joe Biden with? Do you guys realize that Kamala Harris, I think, is the only person who polls better than Joe Biden versus Trump? I mean, it was shocking to me as well, but that's what it is. Kamala Harris is the only person I think polling higher. I mean, by like 1 point or something. But I think that Joe Biden is actually less popular than Kamala Harris. But listen to left-wing media, let them tell it. You would think Kamala Harris is even worse, right? If you get rid of Joe Biden, we're gonna put Kamala Harris, oh my goodness. But she's actually slightly more favorable. I think by 1 point, so that's almost irrelevant. I think that's like statistically a tie, but still, I'm just shocked that she is, rating higher than Joe Biden. But again, anyone talking about replacing Joe Biden, ask them who they want to replace him with. That's to let you know how unserious they are. If you are going to make an argument that they should replace Joe Biden and you're not even putting up who that person should be, that's to know how unserious you are. Because if they mention a name, then you can easily look at the polls and see, well, okay, why are you recommending them to switch Joe Biden, who's already an awful candidate, with someone who rates even less than Joe Biden? Like, does that make sense? Joe Biden's an awful candidate, so let's replace him with somebody who would do worse, right? So that's why they're not going to tell you a name. They're not going to make a suggestion, and that's how you know they're not serious. You cannot make an argument that they should dump Joe Biden, and you're not mentioning who they should replace him with, right? Ultimately, replacing Joe Biden would be very risky, right? Unlike a lot of people, I like to understand things and not just go on feelings. So when this conversation started coming up, I had my feelings. I felt like you should replace Joe Biden because that'll be better. But then I started looking into the process. What would that look like? How do you actually go about doing this? And it's a very risky and messy process. And the problem is the juice worth the squeeze? Because it's very, very risky. And the best case scenario is you have someone that would trail Joe Biden by 1 or 2 points. Like even Gavin Newsom, when you look at the polls, it's amazing to me that I do this basically as a charity, right? I don't do this for money, for fame, for attention. I'm not trying to run a business. I think YouTube is garbage. The idea of being a YouTuber as a career, I mean, that's ridiculous. I could spend years putting out videos and then overnight they delete my channel, no explanation, and have no one to talk to. No thanks, right? But it's just crazy that no one else that we see online is telling the truth about the situation, right? Replacing Joe Biden would be an absolute disaster. Now, there is an argument that could be made where replacing him makes sense, but they're not making it, right? That's how unserious our entire media. Mainstream media is a joke. Independent media is an even bigger joke usually. Here's the argument. First of all, the argument can never just be, oh, replace Joe Biden. Obviously, that would be better than anybody, with no basis. That's not an argument. A valid argument would be that, first of all, you would have to look at the polls because you can't. I mean, if this is a threat to democracy and the stakes are so high, how can you just so casually make a suggestion without really looking into it and thinking about what you're saying, right? I mean, think about it. All these people left-wing media would tell us about this could be our last election and this and that. But yet you're willing to just casually make a suggestion based on your feelings, right? Because you feel like I felt that replacing Joe Biden is the way to go, right? I mean, at least kind of act as if you really think that Trump is this big threat, and therefore, when you're thinking about a suggestion on what to do, and you're going to make a big suggestion as drastic as replacing Joe Biden, that you're going to actually investigate what that would look like and also what the potential gains would be. But anyway, here's a logical argument. So first of all, you would have to, anyone who's serious about this is going to discuss the polls. They're going to discuss the Newsom versus Trump polls and all the other alternatives versus Trump polls. I think I'm the only one who posted those polls. Think about that, man. These guys do it for a living. This is how they make their living. They got all day to think about this and do their research, and I didn't see a single one of them even talk about the polls. How are you going to make an assessment about let's make this decision with no data behind it? It's like, I feel like that would, obviously it makes sense. I mean, they sound like right-wingers, I'm sorry to say. So number one, the only valid argument would start with a discussion about the polls. Then, since the polls are suggesting that you shouldn't replace Joe Biden, and you think that they should replace Joe Biden, then you would need to seek for a scenario that would make it make sense and explain why the polls aren't telling the full story. And here's how that could be. The polls, first of all, maybe based on the sample size, right? Maybe the way the polls were done, the questions being asked. But again, if you're not even discussing the polls, then you're an unserious actor. It's absolute amateur hour. One potential vector I could see to where it would make sense to defy the polls is if you can make a solid argument and back it up with some kind of evidence that there is, like the right wing like to talk about silent majority. There is a large group of people who aren't being represented by this, who could be appealed to, right? So for example, if you could make a solid argument that if Bernie Sanders were to jump in, that based on his policies and the popularity of his policies and some historical context, you look at when he ran before and you look at the results and how he did in certain states and whatever, and you combine that with the threat of Donald Trump and look what they just did with the Supreme Court and blah, 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 right? And you build up something, right, based on some kind of substance other than you just feel like and just saying stuff like, any generic Democrat would do better than Joe Biden with no evidence. Like you build something up and you say, listen, based on this, that, and that, we think if Bernie Sanders were to run against Donald Trump, he would pull enough of the terrified liberals, right, who would jump on board based on, Bernie Sanders being able to debate Trump and win, or whatever it is, something based on evidence, something that is demonstrable. You make an argument of like you could get enough liberals, and then the rest of the gap would be filled by extremely passionate progressives. That many of them are not even registered. That you can make a solid argument that you could get them to register. So there's a whole base of voters that, just like how Trump will activate people that have not been politically activated previously, if you can make a solid argument based on evidence, based on something you could demonstrate, that you could activate a ton of people to fill that gap. So between the liberals that will just be like, listen, we would like an alternative, and Bernie Sanders seems good enough. The socialism stuff isn't scary enough. I mean, we're like, okay, he's talking socialism, but when we listen to him, it doesn't sound that scary. But the stuff Trump is saying, no, that's really scary. So okay, you get enough of those people. And then you get enough of the, really partisan progressives that are like, yes, we're going to increase minimum wage and we're going to push for healthcare and whatever. And something that you can demonstrate that there's an energy and appetite that's just waiting to be tapped into. Now, I'm not saying that's the specific thing, but I'm saying something like that would be an argument of substance, that where you could say, so number one, you're discussing the realities of the polls. Number two, you have a specific person that you have in mind that could replace Joe Biden. Number three, you have a solid argument of why you think that would work in terms of, how you think that person would be able to get enough votes, and also why it's not represented in the polls. Like, there's an easy answer to that. Bernie Sanders is not in any of those polls that I looked at that showed, versus Trump. So we don't know I haven't seen it, how much Bernie Sanders polls against. And I'm not suggesting Bernie Sanders, I'm just saying this is what a coherent argument based on facts and critical thinking, right? That's what it would sound like. Right, but that's not what we're getting from entire left-wing media, TYT, Humanist Report, all these people. Oh, the dumb Democrats, they need to replace Joe Biden. Obviously, look at him, he can't even think, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, but what's the solution, man? You guys sound like right-wingers complaining about stuff, and what's your solution? I mean, they say the solution is replace him. Replace him with who? And demonstrate how that makes sense. Demonstrate how that works. I mean, things are so bad with left-wing media that you have someone who can't stand Joe Biden. I cannot stand him. I don't even like listening to him speak. He should not be president. Right? Even more so, Donald Trump should not be president. But you have me, the guy who doesn't like Joe Biden, that has to be the one to speak logic and facts and actually make a solid argument and have some substance behind what I'm saying. Not just say, oh, we should get rid of Joe Biden. Yeah, they're the dumb Democrats. Look what they're doing. Oh, look, we can see that something is mentally wrong with them. Okay, but where are you going with that, right? Where are you going with that? Where's the substance behind it, right? All the left-wing media, that's all you guys got? You guys were the ones telling us stuff like, remember, what's his name? I forgot. There's that dementia. Kyle talking about, Joe Biden, he exceeded my expectations. I didn't think he was going to do much. I wasn't on that bullshit. I never liked Joe Biden. He doesn't impress me, never impressed me. This whole thing now about, he looked like mentally whatever. That don't faze me, man. I was never impressed with him. You guys were impressed with him. And you have me, the one to say, yo, dumping Joe Biden don't make no sense, at least without having an alternative that's better. I would love if they had something, but they got nothing. If they had something that was plausible, that was based in facts and evidence, that they could demonstrate how this is a better option, trust me, I want to get rid of Joe Biden. I don't want him to be president. I didn't want him to be president before. I don't want him to be president now. But again, I live in reality. I don't live in feelings, right? And I actually do think that the things that's happening right now has major consequences. I do take it seriously. I'm not like Anna Kasparian who thinks, oh, Trump is so funny. I don't find none of this funny. I'm not like the childish conservatives that are, oh, liberal tears. I'm a grown-ass man, and I take this serious, right? So if you're going to talk about we should dump him, come up with some kind of sensible, plausible strategy that makes sense. Don't just throw out your feelings, right? I'll be the first one to champion anything that's better than what we got right now. I'll be the first one. Somebody give me something, man. Give me something. I'll be the one. I'll go with the flags. Dump Joe Biden. Dump Joe. I'll be the one. But you guys ain't giving us nothing but your feelings, right? Is this all content? That's what it is? You're doing and saying the stuff that gets you clicks? Is that what's going on? Humanist Report, the Young Turks, all of you partisan left-wing propagandists, right? This country is just a complete circus. Idiocracy. That's what we live in, right? The choices we got right now is Mr. Comatose versus Mr. Comatose plus crazy plus don't care about nobody else but himself. And media, we got CNN dominating right now, right? CNN dominating right now, telling the truth about Joe Biden, contrary to what all the left-wing media, CNN, the mainstream media, they so. But right now, they're telling the truth about Joe Biden, right? In fact, they're not doing it enough, but I think they have mentioned some of the details of the logistics of dumping Joe Biden. Of course, let the left-wing media tell them they're just captured by the elite and this and that, and they try to defend the Democrats no matter what. But the reality is, they're telling us more truth than these left-wing independent guys who their whole brand is, we're better than the mainstream media. If you're better than the mainstream media, come up with an alternative strategy that you've actually thought about from beginning to end that gives us a better chance of beating Donald Trump. I haven't heard it yet. I'm waiting. As soon as you post it up, I'm gonna be, yes, that's what we like to hear. This is Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. Wow.